episode for a dual episode with me and special guest Linda Steele, and we're going to be talking all about her brand new book, Nerves of Steele, today on Cultivating Guts. Hello, it's Tiffany, and welcome back to Cultivating Guts, a podcast where we discuss gardening, homesteading, gut health, and following our intuition. I am so excited to be back with you guys this week. We've had so much fun on the homestead over the last week, some very insightful moments, and lots of topics about eggs and reels about eggs and eggs and eggs and eggs, and there's been some fun for sure. Today, I'm actually simultaneously video recording this podcast, so you'll be able to watch the video on Spotify or on YouTube. You can catch it on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Tiffany Hinton. And hello, if you're watching on video. Nice to see you. I am super excited today. We have our first guest of season 2, and we have Linda Steele, a Chicago local who has had many adventures in her life around health and fitness, from national speaking engagements to international stuff, and now has a brand new book. So we're going to talk all about that today on the podcast and how her intuition has guided her in her fitness journey and in her business and in her career. It's going to be a fun episode today. So I'm excited for you guys to tune in and listen and stay with us. Before we get started, I would ask you one favor. Can you rate and review the Cultivating Guts podcast? Send us a screenshot of your review to Tiffany@cultivatingguts.com, and I will send you a free garden planner course right from our garden planning educational platform, www.cultivatingguts.com. If you're also, as you're listening, if you have a favorite part, screenshot that, take a picture, whether it's on Spotify or it's on YouTube, and send us that screenshot. Tag us on Instagram at Tiffany, or not at Tiffany, at I am Tiffany Hinton, or at Cultivating Guts, and we'll get that reposted. I love reposting things on Instagram. It's one of my favorite things to do when I'm up in the mornings. I'm so grateful for you and all of our amazing listeners for helping us grow the podcast and sharing it with more people. In exciting news, we will now be also on Google Podcast, Amazon Music, and Audible. So 3 new platforms this year in season 2. And that maybe will help you as well. Share it with more people and allow them to listen on their preferred platform. Before we head into the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Non-Disclosure Apparel. They are a U.S.-based, made by a female owner, bralette company. So no underwire, super comfortable. They come in multiple colors. I will say today I'm wearing their pink. They call it azalea. Right after the flowers, and that's so cool. Then there's beach, and there's storm, and there's sand. I think and another color I'm missing, marine maybe. Anyway, they're super wonderful. It is my everyday bra. As many of you know, it's the gardening bra, it's the yoga bra, it's the do the housework bra, it's the go to town bra, and I love them. The thing that they're known for is their nipple coverage. And Becky, their founder, has given us a special coupon code for you. So you go down to the show notes, you click the link, use Tiffany15 to save 15% off your total order. And if you order multiples, I believe her website also right now is featuring free shipping on 2 or more bralettes. So the Ellie bralette is got you where you need to be and will get you where you need to go going in 2023. For more information on the Ellie bralette, once again, click the link in the show notes. All right, welcome back to Cultivating Guts. Super excited, as I told you guys in the intro, to have Linda Steele with us today on our episode. And she just had a brand new book come out that actually became a bestseller in the first day, I believe. Linda is from the Chicago area, very big in the health and fitness world, as I mentioned in the intro. And I'd actually like you, Linda, to do a little bit of your own introduction. Like, what are you proud of? What do you want listeners to know?
Well, hi, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. I'm honored. I have been in the fitness industry for almost 2 decades now, and it's always been in the Chicagoland area. I was at a major national club for about 6 years before I went off on my own. I opened up my first club in 2010, my second club in 2013. By 2018, I sold both of them. And I acquired one of them back during COVID. and just sold it again. So I, it's not that I didn't want it; it's that I wanted to focus more on some other things, and it's very difficult to do it all. So I started, changing my brand from just fitness to wellness right around 2020 during the COVID era, and it's really something that I have a lot of interest in. As I'm working with my clients, I found that, and I knew this, but I witnessed it. When you're eating clean and you're working out regularly, you tend to make better life decisions. You tend to feel better about yourself. You tend to get yourself out of toxic situations a little bit quicker than you would normally, and so I just felt like that was where I wanted my area of focus to be. So that is when I actually started writing my book. It was actually prior. It was actually probably closer to 2019 when I started, uh, but I was able to get into it a little bit more during that time. And the timing was just right. It was, I had already, been out there in the fitness industry. I've already been on plenty of, um, uh, I was on a program called Fit.live, which went out all over the world. It was a fitness program where I did my fitness routines. I had engaged, anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 people throughout the world on each podcast. I had already been on a co-host on UK Health Radio. I was big in the UK with a couple magazines. I had already, been on a couple speaking events, big speaking events, one in Long Beach called The Best You, one in Nashville called Women in Television and Film. And so this was just the next step. I felt like I wanted to get my story down on paper. And just because it just felt like the right time. It felt like it was time for me. I've been talking to people all these years about how to do it and how to get a clean mindset and how I've done it. And I needed proof of it all for people to see it and read about it. So that's
That
why it was
is
just the right time for me to write this book.
that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things I want to go back to that you said, and I also truly believe, is like when you're eating clean, and we should probably clarify what eating clean is. It's not like mono eating or only eating one food. So do you want to, Linda, talk a little bit about what clean eating means in your
Clean
context?
eating. Sure, absolutely. Clean eating, there's a big spectrum of clean eating. Some people eat, no processed foods. That's what I tend to try to do. No processed foods. I like to keep a 40-40-20 split on my macros. 40% protein, 40% carbohydrate, and 20% fat. There's a lot of diets out there where everyone's like low carb, or no carb. And quite frankly, that's where most of our vitamins and minerals are coming from, are the, fruits and vegetables that we're
Mm-hmm.
consuming. So we can't omit those. Those are very important. Clean meaning, lean meats, um, depending on if people are trying to eat for inflammatory issues that they're addressing, they tend to take things out like eggs and red meats. I tend to take the red meats out myself, not always, but for the most part. I'm not opposed to protein supplements because, quite frankly, it's a little bit difficult to consume all of the food you should be taking in on a regular basis if you have a busy schedule. So I do like to supplement sometimes with some protein supplements. I just, make sure that not just my macronutrients are in, but my micronutrients. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
vitamins and minerals I take in.
Super important. Yeah. So in doing that, you're right. Every person's body is different. Everybody's gut is a little different. And so whether they have food allergies or they have autoimmune or things like that, there's a little bit of customization there that happens.
Sure,
So
sure.
how are you, because this is what you actually really, so I want to clarify clean eating, but then you said like it helps your mindset, it helps you think clear. And so for
Mhm.
me during the pandemic, I got really big into Kundalini yoga, and they have a whole thing about how if you have no processed food, you have no sugar, it actually like clears your mind so you can like intuitively hear things. You can meditate better. You can like just connect to God better. But for yourself, what are you seeing in your clients when they are kind of eating? They're eating healthier. They're eating, it sounds like, more whole foods, no processed
Mhm.
food, and they're really focusing on what they're consuming. How does that play into their life?
It changes everything. I've had people go from not being able to uh, have a healthy relationship to being involved in very healthy relationships, having being able to take a look within and finding if there are things that they could be doing better to contribute to the healthy relationships. I've had people who have gone from being stagnant in their careers to getting promotions. I've had people having a poor relationship even with their, not just the significant other, but with their family, friends and family, children, parents. They're able to overcome some childhood traumas, which again, that's one of the basis of my books. It's about childhood trauma and how it affects our adult relationships. So it's just funny. Everyone's a little bit different because everyone carries a little bit, their lives are just a little bit different. Well, actually, everyone's life is a lot different, but but I've seen, because I've worked with hundreds of people, maybe even more. I have never counted my load of different types or different clients, but it affects everyone just a little bit different, but all in
That's
a positive
awesome.
way.
Yeah, it changes the chemical makeup of their gut, which then changes the chemicals and the hormones that connect and talk to their brain and their emotions and all of that. So there is
Exactly.
this huge connection. So in your book, the book title is Nerves of Steel.
Yes.
How did you come up with that title?
Well, it's so catchy, isn't it?
It is very catchy.
My last name being Steele was, I knew that I wanted that in the title because that's part of my brand. And that is my legal name, but it's also part of my brand. And I just, over the years, when I was getting out of the toxic situations that I was in and the toxic relationships that I was in, I felt like it took more and more nerve, each time, because each one was again different, but
Mhm.
they were involving time invested. They were involving money. They were involving a complete change of lifestyle, and they were affecting my children's lives. So it took a lot of courage to make some of the changes that I had to make. And that's where the title comes in.
I like it. I like it. So, topics in the book, you talked to how it's like overcoming trauma, but what other kind of topics are in your book?
You're going to see in my book a number of different relationships that I was in, starting from, my early 20s, and how my childhood played into the types of relationships that I found myself in. And each relationship was a little bit different, but yet they all had, something very similar in common. I became dependent and on men, and then I wound up in a sticky situation that I couldn't get myself out of. So toward the end of the book, you're going to notice a pattern. Each relationship that I got out of, I was able to put together a plan, because a lot of people struggle on getting out of a situation that they're in and they feel like there's no way out. And I had one situation, it took me, I had a 5-year plan actually to get out of it. So that's something that I want readers to walk away with. If you're trying to get out of a situation, it may not happen overnight, but if you get a plan together and you get the right support system in place, anything can happen.
It's so interesting. And I didn't even know the podcast was going to turn this direction, but actually, my first marriage was kind of mentally and verbally abusive.
Mm,
And it's interesting because I went back to college to get a career where I knew I couldn't get a job in the location we lived on purpose. That was part of my plan, knowing
wow.
that I grew up in, downstate Illinois, and I went to college and got a degree in computer science. Well, nobody in farm country is going to hire a computer scientist, 20 years
Right.
ago. And so part of
Right.
my plan was like, I'm going to go get this career. And I'm going to have to move. And then that's going to get me out. And then it was interesting because he came with me, and I was like, that wasn't what was supposed to happen. But about a year after we lived in the Chicago area, he's like, I can't. And I'm like, I'm done. I was done 5, 6 years ago. I just needed to find a job and be able to pay for myself. So it is interesting that sometimes you're right. You need the change, but you can't make it immediately. And it also, I think, goes into a little bit of we have to stretch our comfort zone and stretch it and stretch it and stretch it
Oh, yeah.
until we feel comfortable being in that other place, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Um, that is, yeah, that's a hard
It's so
lesson for a lot
interesting.
of people too.
It is a very hard lesson. It's so interesting. Mine and your story, there are parallels there because you had to change so many things in your life. You mentioned your comfort zone. You moved out of an area that you were comfortable with, and you probably had your friend base there and your family base there and everything. So you had to pick up and move and change everything, build new relationships in every aspect. That's not easy to do. But how much happier are you now than you were then?
It's so, and it's also interesting. So I've been in the Chicago area 20 years. Um, Happiness, you find new friends. You find bad friends and you find good friends, and you find, and you go through like those cycles of friends. Happiness, though, I will say, came when I stopped like worrying about judgment. It wasn't it wasn't about what everybody else thought, or like, oh, you got to go to high school and then you got to get married when you're in your 20s and you got to have kids by your time you're 25 or you're like a failure. And it's like I didn't have kids till I was almost 40. So
Oh,
um
yeah.
and it's an interesting, so as we were talking in the pre-show, like I have 3 daughters, and now I encourage them to be weird. And they're always like, Mom, you're the weirdest person ever. Because I want them to be okay with not being normal. Like,
Yes,
go
I
ahead
know what
and
you mean.
be fun, be weird, and embrace that now when you're growing up, and know that it's okay. So
Yep.
it's an interesting, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so in I want to connect like the pieces of the eating and the fitness and how that gets you these nerves of steel, right? To be able to
Hmm.
make these changes. Do
Hmm.
you want to speak a little bit about how those kind of intertwine?
Yeah. There are chemical reactions that happen and hormonal reactions that happen when you're working out. And by the way, there are 100 different ways that you can get in shape. I resistance training has a bunch of benefits, so that's what I always recommend. And whether it's in the form of Pilates or yoga or actually weightlifting, it's important to get it in. Your cardiovascular system, you need to get that strong as well. Some people forget that aspect of it. Nobody likes cardio. Yeah, I shouldn't say that. Some marathon runners love it; they're addicted to it. But what you'll find is that you don't have to start out like balls to the wall. You can start out slow and gradually build up to where you need to be to get your heart and lungs in shape. Your heart and lungs are getting into shape even if you're going slow because that's your starting point. But what happens are these chemical reactions go on in the brain, the hormonal changes go on in the body, and your body gets into a balance. And once your body is in a balance, it's like it runs like a top. It's kind of like when if you're driving a sports car and you pull into the gas station and you need premium gas, but you put regular in and your car doesn't run so well, right? Next time you go and you fill up your tank, you put premium in and your car runs so much better. The human body works the same way. When you get your
Absolutely.
regular tune-ups in your car, when you get all your brakes changed on time, when you get everything in your car runs great. The body works the same way. When you start working it the way it's supposed to be worked, again, that balance. That doesn't mean work out every single day. That doesn't mean go hard every single day. Your body likes the balance. As much as it wants to work out, it needs the rest, it needs the sleep. We're just finding out over the last 5 to 8 years how important sleep is. Melatonin, serotonin, these are the chemicals that are produced in the brain while you sleep. And without them, you can't get that balance. You can't lose weight. You can't, it's very difficult to think straight. Those are really important chemicals and they're produced while you sleep. So these are all things that are so important to kind of tie together.
Yeah. Um, when I was studying functional medicine, one of the other things we learned is like your liver detoxes itself every night in a
Mhm.
cycle. And if you don't have this like 6 hour window where you're asleep, it doesn't actually happen. And then it just compounds like the toxins in the liver because it didn't flush.
Yes, yes.
And so there's so many connections that we don't
And how
always
many,
understand that our body does need.
that's right. And that, let's go back to the food for a minute. Your body needs 1,000 calories minimum for your organs to even function properly. That's before we get into all the other things that go on. And so when we hear people cutting their calories, I always ask them, well, how many calories are you eating before you cut? How many are you eating? Oh, I don't know. I don't pay attention. I just make sure that I cut. And oh my goodness, you can't do that. You have to first make sure you're eating enough, and then let's get the macros balanced. Um, but the first thing everybody wants to do is cut their calories. And then you mentioned the cleaning out your liver. If your liver's not hydrated, it can't possibly do its job. So, the people who are drinking, one bottle of water all day long, they're like, oh, I don't have time to pee all day. I don't want to have to go to the bathroom I have to pee every hour. You should be peeing every 30 minutes to an hour. Like, that's normal. That's your body cleaning everything out and making sure that everything's working right. But, people are inconvenienced when their body's trying to do the right thing. So those are
Yes.
some things that, people forget. You have to drink. It's not, that's part of the, making your body function properly. It's so important.
Yeah, for sure. That's part of the changes that you have to accommodate. And
Yeah.
that's part of like it's even I think goes into that like comfort zone. Like maybe
Mm,
you're not comfortable getting up and walking out in the office every 30 minutes to use the bathroom. You're worried that somebody's gonna look at you like, what is she why do they take so many breaks? But it's a tiny step in making a bigger step.
it is. They should not look at it as a sign of weakness. They should look at it as a sign of, this is the way my body functions. This is normal.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. So let's I'm curious as well, Linda, how do you like the title of the podcast is Cultivating Guts. How do you cultivate guts every day in your own life?
You mean figuratively or literally?
However you want to interpret it.
Okay. Well, I start off by, like I said, eating clean and working out. I actually start my day every day with a drink in my NutriBullet or I forget the name of the Ninja, and it has spinach, carrots, berries, protein powder. Sometimes I throw in some Greek yogurt. Sometimes I throw in some beets. But that's what I start my day with. And I feel like if I don't start my day with that, things aren't as as easy for me. So that's something
Hmm.
that I do, every day. If I miss a day or two, I feel it. So there are a couple days a week where I go to work and I'm tired. There are some nights of mine that have actually go a little bit later than I want, and I find myself getting, driving to work a little bit down, irritated. I haven't even gotten to work yet, and I'm already like, ugh. And then I have to remind myself, what do you have to be angry about? Everything's perfect. Your kids are healthy. You have a good relationship going on. Your business is successful. You just launched a book that hit international bestseller overnight. I, what are you mad about?
Congratulations. That's amazing.
I have to sometimes remind myself what's good, what's bad. Okay, say something went haywire. Say my car's in the shop and I'm irritated about it. Okay, is that something I can control? No, it's not. So we're going to put that on the side burner because I can't control that. I'm just going to let that work itself out, and I'll deal with it when it's time to get the bill. So I try to put things into perspective. I try to remember all the good things. instead of being bitter, in my book, I talk about, men who've done me wrong, people who've done me wrong. Instead of focusing on the bad people who've done me wrong, I think about the people who didn't. I think about the men in my life who've been amazing, and my coworkers and my clients and my family. They're always first. I think about the successes that the strides that my daughters have made. College graduates. One of them has her master's degree. They all have good jobs. One of them owns her own business.
It's awesome.
I try to
Yeah.
think of. I'm so lucky to still have my mother with me. Most of us, by the time you hit my age, you've lost at least one, maybe both parents. Um, I have a great relationship with my sister, my nieces and nephews. I'm in love, with a man who treats me so well. I mean, I have so many great things. So when I find myself irritated with something, I try to remember all the great things. And the bad things, I usually don't have control over them, and I put them aside.
I love that perspective. It's a great way. It's like you're reflecting on the greatness and the gratitude, and and that's amazing. And then understanding that there's things that you just can't handle, and you just got to, like you said, put them to the side.
Hmm.
That is awesome.
It's hard to do that sometimes because they consume us. Sometimes we get
Exactly.
irritated
Yeah.
with it. It's normal. But then, okay, fine. Be irritated. There's your 10 minutes of being irritated. Think about this. Put it into perspective. What about all these great things? So
Yeah.
I'm no different than anybody else. I have those moments, and I have to have a little talk with myself. Have that little talk with yourself.
I love it. I love that. I had a coach one time who said, when it's really bad, just go somewhere and scream. She was like, just
Yeah,
let it out, get rid of
yeah,
it, and then
sure.
shake your nervous system, like will reset, and then go back to whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a good piece of advice at that point in my life, to just kind of work through it, let it out, and keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not inhuman. I mean, you're allowed to have a bad moment. You're allowed to have things bother you. We're not going to be able to brush everything off, but
Yeah.
let it bother you, accept it, and then move on.
Yep. Exactly. So, where can people find your brand new book?
My brand new book can be found on Amazon right now. You'll look up Nerves of Steele with an E at the end by Linda Steele with a E at the end. I'm working on getting it into Barnes and Noble. As a matter of fact,
Oh, that's
they're trying to
awesome.
work. Yeah, they're trying to play nice with Amazon to see if they can carry my books. I'm really excited about that. And I mean, I have a website as well, nervesofsteel.net. It'll direct you right to the Amazon link.
Okay. All right. We'll put the link in the show notes, and we'll make sure we get it posted also in any communications we send out. I want to thank you for being on the podcast and coming to talk about your story, your journey, and the brand new book. And I really honestly believe there's a lot of women out there that it's going to help. I mean, just in this short time we've spent together, I can see parallels in what I've been through. And I know I'm not the only one that's had this situation. There's thousands of us. And a lot of times we just don't talk about it. So really appreciate you coming forward, Linda, sharing your story, and putting it out there for other people to find help.
Thank you, Tiffany, for having me on. I'm honored to be here. I really appreciate
All
it.
right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Share with me what your favorite part was. And when you pick up Linda Steele's brand new book, Nerves of Steele, take a picture, post it on Instagram, tag at Cultivating Guts and at Linda Steele, so that we know that you've got her brand new book, and we will get that reposted. Ask us any questions. We're here for you. You can find our contact information in the show notes below. Satnam. Love you guys. So if you love this episode, share it with a friend, send it to anyone who may find this information inspiring or even helpful. To get my newest book, Our Ultimate Green Witch Garden Planner, you can get it on Amazon or on our website, www.cultivatingguts.com. I want to let you know that our women's all-day retreat for our Green Witch Garden Workshop, Garden Retreat, is scheduled for April 22nd on Earth Day. Come spend a full day with me on the homestead, learning more about biodynamic gardening, gardening with moon cycles, companion planting, and so many more fun things about gardening and the the witchiness of it and using the elements of the earth, wind, fire, and water, and so much more. You'll be able to find those details shortly on our website, www.cultivatingguts.com, and you'll be able to sign up early for a special podcast listener rate will be posted early. So those details will be coming next week. So check out next week's podcast there. And everything you need to get going and growing your own garden can be found, including our garden masterclass and garden consults with me, your own garden coach, Tiffany Hinton, at cultivatingguts.com.